She walked out the door. I knew this was going to happen. It should have happened a long time ago. I'd been seeing signs of it for months now. She had been distant or annoyed or ambivalent or confrontational. No matter what I said or what I did, it wasn't helping the situation. There were very few good times during these months. In fact, the good times came when we went out with friends, and that provided a distraction from our miserable lives. My name is Kurt Randolph, and she is my wife, Sue. Well, she's my wife, at least for a while. I've already talked to a divorce attorney to file the divorce papers. 26 years of marriage ends not with a bang, but a whimper. I will call my son and daughters to let them know this weekend. I just don't know where we went wrong. 26 years of marriage, all but the last few have been good. Not great, but good. Life hasn't been a solid cherry, but we've lived well. Our children, Glenn, Julia, and Rachel, are healthy, well-settled young adults. 2 of them are still in college, and 1 graduated 6 months ago. This may have been the catalyst for our problems. The empty nest syndrome started when our first child left for college. It affected her more than I realized. She changed dramatically. From then on, no matter how much I hinted, wooed, or begged, it never happened. It was a change, and I had to get over it, meaning that sex would no longer be a part of our life together. Needless to say, this led to many heated arguments. In the end, I just gave up and took matters into my own hands. There was no point in arguing about it. Why would I want to be intimate with someone who doesn't want me? Then, a few months ago, she started to change, and not for the better. Now she's leaving, and honestly, it's hard for me to feel anything close to sadness. I know where she's going, to a lover. She hasn't bothered to pursue it with me, but with some guy 10 years younger than her, she spends hours in bed. When I first noticed this latest change, I knew something was going on. Sure, it bothered me, but not as much as perhaps it should have. But I had to know, so I asked around. I work 50, 60 hours a week at 3M Corporation in Aberdeen, South Dakota. I'm a manufacturing engineer. It's a great job, except that sometimes I have to go to work at odd hours. Sometimes I'm on call, and if something goes wrong that the maintenance techs can't figure out, I'm the one who has to get the equipment back in working order. In the past, being on call has posed some challenges. Not being able to get away for the weekend and miss the kids' Saturday night soccer games or even a late-night dinner. But the pay is good, and Aberdeen, though the 3rd largest city in South Dakota, is small enough to feel like a small town. I prefer it to big city living. We lived in St. Paul, Minnesota for several years. Not much happens in that town without someone's knowledge. If you ask around, someone knows someone who knows someone who knows something or has seen something. Only a week after I asked, my best friend Paul came back to me with a grim expression on his face. "You were right, Kurt," he said. "What did you hear?" "She has lunch with a guy at least once a week. Carol, one of her coworkers, is my cousin. She said it's been going on for at least 3 months. He picks her up from the parking lot and they come back an hour later," revealed Paul. "Sue works at Mid-States Printing Company. She's a secretary, administrative assistant. I think secretary is now a derogatory term. She's been working there for about 15 years, returning to work shortly after our youngest went to kindergarten. I have to admit that for a 48-year-old woman, she still looks good and doesn't even look 40. I'm sure that's why she was attractive to David Perkins. He's the same scumbag who's been trying to woo my wife. He sells paper at the Heartland Paper Mill in Sioux Falls. He makes regular rounds and calls Mid-States. I checked him out when Paul brought me up to speed. David Perkins divorced with 2 children, ages 7 and 10. From what I understand, he cheated on his wife. She found out and made him sue. That was 4 years ago. I guess cheaters don't mind forcing others to cheat. I wonder if Sue is his only victim. For her sake, I hope so, but I doubt it. It doesn't matter now. Sue left under some lame excuse. Going away alone for a spa weekend to take a break from the tension between us. Alone, what a joke. I know she's going to be with him. And not just for a few hours like 2 weeks ago when she took the weekend off to be with him. Carol called Paul, who called me when he found out Sue was taking the day off. I took the day off too and followed her as she pulled out of the parking lot. She drove to the Holiday Inn, and guess who was waiting for her? That's when I called my divorce attorney and started the process. She was supposed to get a summons on her resort weekend. All I had to do was call when the GPS tracker in her Yukon XL stopped at her final destination. I know some will say I should have told her what was going on, but after 3 long years of no intimacy, you start to wonder if it's worth it. It's not that your love is dead, it's just that you wonder if the love is enough. You start to think that maybe you both would be happier with someone else or even alone. For her sake, I hope that's the case. I've always been a person who can be happy in almost any situation. Why go through life focusing on the negative because there are so many good things around every day. So I sit here with my phone in my hand and follow her progress as she goes to meet her destiny. Sioux? I am excited and a little anxious about going to Sioux Falls. I spend the next 2 nights with David, my friend and lover. He understands me. He listens without judging or trying to fix me or my problems. He doesn't demand anything from me, and so I take everything I give him as a gift. No pressure, no expectations, no whining or pleading like my husband Kurt would. He just doesn't get it. When a woman begins to go through the changes, she doesn't want or need sex like she did in her 20s. She needs someone who will listen and just love her for who she is. David has been that person for me for the past 3 months. We started going out to lunch together and talking. I could talk to him about anything. He listened and made me feel special, like I was more than just a mom or an administrative assistant. 2 weeks ago, he asked me if I could get away for an afternoon to do something fun. I knew what he was asking about. He'd been hinting at a relationship for the past month. He mentioned in passing how he likes to pamper a woman, to be attentive to her wants and needs. The fact that this guy 10 years younger than me was showing attention and desire made me wonder. I agreed to take Thursday off. I had some free time. He booked a room at the Holiday Inn. I was nervous, of course, but I figured this was a guy who knew me and cared about me. I wanted to show him that I cared about him too, and thank him in a special way. When I arrived at the hotel, David invited me into the room and we sat in chairs and talked for a while. He complimented me on my looks. "Sue, you always look so good. You dress smart, businesslike. I don't know how your boss manages to get any work done." I blushed and giggled a little. He's so cute, and I'm glad he noticed my attention to his appearance. Then he leaned over to me and kissed me. I thought, when was the last time Kurt kissed me like that? I know it's been years. A few minutes passed and we were already doing it on the bed. I wanted to get home before Kurt did, so I got up, took a quick shower, and got dressed. "Do you think we could go away for the weekend?" David asked me. "I can rent a riverside inn near Sioux Falls, and we can enjoy the view, nature, and each other. The fall leaves are just reaching their peak." That sounds like a good idea. But I don't know what to tell my husband. Tell him you're going away for a spa weekend. You need to get away to be yourself. Is he really such a horrible person that he would deny you a little vacation? I don't know if he'd even notice, I said, thinking about how our relationship had deteriorated lately. "Okay, I'll schedule it for 2 weeks, starting this Friday." "Okay? That sounds great, David. I love spending time with you," said I. "And you know I love spending time with you," he said. I left with the thought that he and I would be back together in a couple weeks. I drove straight home, getting home at the usual time, but of course Kurt wasn't there. He always works late. I felt a little guilty when I walked through the door. This was the house we shared with my husband. I walked through the living room toward the kitchen and saw a large picture of the whole family hanging over the fireplace. Then I saw our framed wedding photo standing on the mantel. I stopped and looked at both pictures. What have I done? I thought to myself. I know Kurt and I don't get along, but is that a reason to leave him? I can't do anything that will make him suspicious. I'll just do the usual. I went to the bedroom and changed into jeans and a t-shirt, putting the clothes in the laundry basket. I then went to the kitchen to get started on dinner. I decided I would make one of his favorite dishes, stuffed pork chops and mashed potatoes. Kurt? I remember that day vividly. It was the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. She stayed in the hotel room for over 3 hours. I'm not an idiot, I know what they were doing, but it broke my heart. It's been over 3 years since we had any intimacy. She didn't even want to kiss me anymore because it always leads to you wanting one thing. The most I was getting was a quick kiss, and that's not even counting hugs. I drove around the neighborhood after I saw her leave the hotel. I didn't want to drive home. I didn't know what I could do with her in the emotional state I was in. At 8:30, I pulled into our garage, turned off the car, and sat there for a minute or two. She opened the door from the kitchen to the garage as I was getting out of the car. "What were you doing? Didn't you just pull in here a couple minutes ago?" she asked. Talking on the phone," said I. And the lying began. "I made dinner, but it's getting cold." "You better call when you're going to be up this late," said Zaid irritably. "Sorry, a problem came up that I didn't know how to handle. I may be staying late at work a lot in the near future." It wasn't a lie. I didn't want to be around her. That was 2 weeks ago, and now she was walking out the door to go on a spa weekend. For the past 2 weeks, I had been coming home late every night, and on the weekends I was doing yard work and getting the house ready for winter. We've been like roommates, but not for long. As soon as she got to her destination, I would call Tom Andrews, the sheriff. One of the nice things about living in a small town is that you get to know a lot of people. Tom and Marcia were friends. We went to their house many times and vice versa. I talked to him a couple days ago and asked if he would serve the divorce papers on my wife. He was shocked until I brought him up to speed. I'm sorry to hear that, Kurt. You and Sue were together for a very long time. Yes, but for the last 3 years we haven't been together physically at all, I said. 3 years? Wow. I think, now that you mention it, the last few times you and I went out, there seemed to be a little tension between you two. Now she's spending time with someone else. Half of me wants to hurt her, and the other half of me just says, there's no point in wasting energy on someone who doesn't love you anymore. I'm sorry, Kurt, so when do you want her serviced? Saturday, I guess. Friday she's leaving for ASPA weekend. I'll know where she's staying by tonight. I'm going to track her Yukon GPS and see where it stops. Sue. It's over a 3-hour drive from Aberdeen to Sioux Falls, where David has a hotel booked, so I grabbed a fast food snack on the way. I arrived a little after 9 o'clock. David must have been waiting for me because he was out of the house as soon as I pulled into the driveway. The realization that he was watching me made me feel good on my soul. I thought you'd never come. I was afraid Kurt would ban you from the spa weekend. He doesn't own me, and there's no way I'd miss this event. I've been looking forward to it since we talked about it 2 weeks ago. They just opened an ice cream parlor in the dining hall. Let's socialize and then we'll pick up your stuff, suggested David. Sounds great. It was another sign that David, unlike Kurt, wanted something more from me. He didn't offer to head to the room right away. After introducing ourselves to the hosts and other guests, we fed each other ice cream with cherries and whipped cream. I could tell David couldn't wait to start over by how much he touched and caressed me during the meeting. The bed and breakfast is lovely, and the host and other guests seemed very friendly. After we ate ice cream, we took my things to my room. Our room was probably the largest room available, and it overlooked the river. I bet tomorrow in the light of day it will be stunning with all the fall colors. Kurt? Sue's GPS stopped working. I checked the address and found that there was a bed and breakfast there. Now I knew where to apply. I called Tom. What's up, Kurt? A little numb right now. I'm sure I won't be able to sleep much tonight, probably even more than she did, I said mournfully. Don't beat yourself up about it, Kurt. You're doing something about it. It's best to just forget about it as much as possible and let the process take its course. 26 years, Tom, 26 years. Yeah, that's a bitch. Are you sure you want me to file them? He asked. Are you sure you can't work it out? Tom, we haven't felt like a couple in years, and this just puts things in perspective. I'm sorry again, Kurt. Thanks. I gave Tom the address of the B&B. He said he'd serve the divorce papers late tomorrow morning after he drove there. When my lawyer drew up the papers, I stipulated that I wanted the divorce to be on the grounds of adultery. He told me that without proof, we would likely have to go to irreconcilable differences. At least in that case, the court papers will state that I tried to file on the grounds of adultery, I said. I would wait until tomorrow to call the kids. I didn't want any of them to call Mom and alert her. Those calls would be the hardest. Kurt? It was a restless night. I only managed to get 2 hours of sleep. I kept thinking about Sue with this man, about what our marriage had gone wrong. When we were younger, we didn't want to go to work to be together. Reality told us that work was necessary, but our thoughts, at least mine, were always about coming home and being there for her. When the kids came along, obviously our priorities changed, but we were still a team, just a bigger one. Now she had found another person to be her teammate. Our life together is over. This morning she will be served with a summons, and we will each have our own team, just on different sides of the courtroom. Me with my lawyer, her with hers, fighting for whatever we can get out of the remnants of our life together. I lay on the bed and stared off into space. I hadn't even bothered to undress last night. I should probably get up, take a shower, and change into something presentable that didn't look like it had been slept in. Sue. I wake up with David. I'm so relaxed. It feels like I've slept for days. I look at the clock. It's 7:45. It's time for us to get up. Breakfast buffet is from 7:30 to 9. David, we need to get up. We need to get cleaned up and go downstairs, I tell him. Let's skip breakfast and continue what we started last night, he says. I need a refresher if we're going to do this all over again, I say. Oh, Kurt, I say to myself, what's happened to us? I haven't felt intimacy with you in years. It used to be us against the world. I sink into reflection, remembering my life and the wonderful events. My wedding, the birth of my 3 children, vacations, graduations, and soon our son's wedding to a girl he's been dating since his junior year of college. The bathroom door opens and I wipe my eyes and fix my makeup while David gets dressed. I can't look at him. I don't want him to see the moisture in my eyes. Are you ready to go eat? He asks. Yes, I say quietly. We walk down to the dining room and greet our hosts and the other couples. At the buffet, we grab some wonderful food. Everything looks so delicious that I find it hard to limit myself, but my figure tells me to watch what I eat. We sit and eat in silence. David tries to make light conversation, but my comments are restrained. I look around the room. There is an older couple celebrating their 50th anniversary. There is also a young couple who seem to be celebrating their first anniversary. The rest of the couples are of various ages. I notice that David and I are the only ones not wearing wedding rings. I took mine off when I drove here last night. I finish my food quickly and turn to David. Why don't we take a walk down to the river? I want to take in the views and enjoy the colors. Sure, and then after lunch, we'll drive through the countryside and have a late lunch somewhere along the way, he says. As we walk along the riverbank, David takes my hand. It's so beautiful here. I say out loud, not necessarily to him, but just to nature. Yes, it is, he says. But not as beautiful as you. I smile. He's been praising me and my look so much, and has been since he became a sales rep for his company in Aberdeen 6 months ago. He has made this 48-year-old woman feel young and attractive again. Let's go back to the room. I want to express my appreciation for this wonderful weekend, I tell him. He looks at me with a huge smile on his face. We get back home and get on with it. At that moment, I hear a knock on the door. I grab my robe and open the door a little to peek out. There stands a man in a uniform, a sheriff's uniform. I open the door a little wider and ask, "Can I help you?" Sue Randolph. The voice sounds familiar. It's Tom Andrews. He and his wife Marcia are good friends. I just rarely see him in uniform and cap. Tom? I say, and a thought flashes through my mind. Why would Tom be here? I think. I'm here on official business, he says. My heart races. I think of all the shows on TV where a police officer informs the next of kin of a death in the family. He's still talking when I whisper. Is Kurt okay? No, Sue. He keeps talking, but all I can think about is that Kurt is dead. Then I hear him say something about, he's broken and he can't talk to you. So he's alive, I say, and my heart skips another beat. Yeah, but he's in really bad shape. I press my hands to my mouth, trying not to choke. The door slowly opens and he looks at David lying on the bed. I blush with embarrassment and horror. Then he holds something out to me and says, "You've been served," and pulls out his phone and takes a picture. I'm confused. What? I say as he turns and walks away. What? I don't understand what's going on. What? I repeat, completely confused. Oh my God, I say, falling to the floor. Look on the bright side, Sue. Now we can go outside and not hide it. Oh my God, I repeat. After a few minutes of lying on the floor, I get up and pick up my phone. I try to call Kurt, but the call goes straight to voicemail. Kurt, I just got a call from Tom. He told me I was right. She was there with a guy, he was lying naked on the bed, and she was in a robe. Thanks, Tom, I appreciate you doing this for me, I numbly said. Are you going to be okay? He asks. I don't know, Tom. I'll call Marcia and ask her to come over to be with you, he says. I don't need her to do that, really, I just need to be alone, I say. Thanks, I'll talk to you later. I hang up the phone and turn it off. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to think about my marriage and my future. Sue, I need to get in touch with someone, find out what hospital he's in, I babble. He's not in a hospital, Sue, says David, confused. You heard him, he said he broke down and can't talk. I state, that's not what he said, Sue. He said his heart is broken and he can't talk to you. I'm sure physically he can talk to you. He just doesn't want to. What, that's what he said? Yes, Sue, you will soon be a free woman. I started thinking about my marriage and the future. It looks bleak. I hurriedly get dressed. What are you doing? Asks David. I have to go. I have to talk to him. Didn't you tell me you were more like neighbors than husband and wife? What's the difference? He asks. I just have to talk to him, I say sternly. What about the room? I have it for the weekend. He objects. Well, enjoy it, I say, grabbing my bag and heading out the door. Sue, he doesn't want to talk to you, he says. Well, I guess I'll just talk myself then and hopefully he'll listen, I say as I close the door. Thoughts race through my head as I head to my Yukon, the SUV that Kurt bought for me. What am I going to say? I ask myself as I get in the Yukon and drive out of the parking lot. My phone rings and I look at the caller ID, hoping it's Kurt, but it's David. Really? You left? Yeah, I'm gone. What about our weekend? How about giving each other the pleasure you haven't known in years? I guess you'll have to pleasure yourself, I said, and hung up. Men, I thought, all they want to do is entertain women. I had already been on the phone for half an hour and had called Kurt's voicemail 5 times when the phone rang. Kurt, I'm on my way home right now. Can we talk about this? Bitch! I hear, and immediately my phone goes dead. I look at my phone. It wasn't Kurt, it was David. At this point, I didn't care if he thought I was a bitch. Another half hour and 5 more calls go by when I see lights behind me. Oh shit, I say, looking down and seeing that I'm going 97 miles per hour. I wonder what the fine would be for going 17 miles over the speed limit. When I pull over, the cop takes his time walking up to my car door. He must be checking my license plates. I'm usually a good driver. I haven't had a ticket in over 15 years. Maybe he'll get off with a warning. As he approaches the driver's door, I roll down my window. I already have my license and registration ready to give to him. What's the rush? He asks. I need to get home to my husband. There's been a misunderstanding and he's not returning my calls. He looks at me questioningly. Why isn't he returning your calls? He says, looking at my license. He has a grudge against me, I say. As he stands there, I see him looking in my truck at a manila envelope on the passenger seat. He points to the envelope. It looks like this is much more serious than just a misunderstanding. I start crying. Where are you coming from? From Sioux Falls, I say, snorting. That's a long way from Aberdeen. What were you doing in Sioux Falls? From the tone of his voice, he guesses why I was there. Nonsense, I say softly. He gives me back my license and registration and a speeding ticket for 17. Don't speed, he says. He walks back to his patrol car. Damn men, all they want to do is entertain me. I pull out onto the road, slowly accelerate to 79 miles per hour, and put on cruise control. I watch him chase me for about 5 miles. My blood pressure rises with each mile. Over the next hour, I try to call Kurt dozens of times. Damn it, Kurt, turn your phone on! I yell in desperation. Kurt. It had been about an hour and a half since Tom had called me. I was sitting in my lounge chair and decided it was time to call the kids. How do I break the news to them? I say out loud. Turning on my phone, I see that I have several voicemails from Sue. I don't want to hear what she has to say. I call Glenn, my oldest, first. Hi, Dad, he says, answering the phone. Hey, Glenn, how's the new job going? Great, Dad. I can't believe they're paying me to design buildings. I love it. I hope you love your job until you retire. So what are you calling me for? He asks. Well, son, I have some news I want to share with you. Are you okay, Dad? Physically, yes. Emotionally, no. What do you mean? Glenn, there's no easy way to say this. I'm divorcing your mother. There's stunned silence on the other end of the line. After about a minute, he says quietly, What did she do? I realize from his tone that he's already guessed. She decided that doing something with someone else was more important than doing it with me. Really? What the hell? How long has this been going on? He asks. I'm not sure, but I think a few months, I say. Man, I'm sorry to have to hear that from my dad. Yeah, I'm sorry to have to tell you. So what are you going to do? He asks. I sued her this morning. I'm divorcing her. You don't think you can work it out? He asks. Glenn, if Janie cheated on you, what would you do? I ask. He thought for less than a minute, then said, She'd leave. I'd throw her ass out. Janie is Glenn's steady girlfriend. In fact, Glenn confessed to me that he was going to ask her to marry him on New Year's Eve. He's already bought the ring on an installment plan. I'm so happy for them. Please don't call your sisters. I want to tell them. I'll try to reach them tonight. I won't, Daddy. I'll call you tonight and discuss it again. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for understanding. We'll get through this, Dad. Don't hate Mom for this. That's between me and her. She's still your mom and she needs your support. I don't know how much support I can give her, Dad, he stated. I know, but you have to try, said I. Okay, Daddy. She's still my mom. I love her, even though I don't like what she did. I understand, Glenn. I love her too. I just don't like her anymore. I'm sorry, Dad. You don't deserve that. Take care of yourself, son. You too, Dad. Bye. See you, Dad. I hung up the phone and sat staring into space. I was deep in thought. At that moment, my phone rang, and I answered it without even thinking. Hello? Said I. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Then a voice said, Kurt? Oh, Kurt, thanks for answering. We need to talk about this. I ended the conversation. It was Sue, and I didn't want to talk to her. I turned the phone off and sat staring at it. Someday I would need to talk to her, but not now. Sue. I got Kurt on the phone, but he hung up before I could say what I wanted to say. Frankly, I was surprised he answered. I'd gotten voicemails so often that I didn't expect to meet him in person. But now that he answered, I was overcome with anxiety. What am I going to tell him? How do I explain what I did? Sure, I could say I was sorry, but what else? I decided that I needed to think and gather my thoughts about what I would say when we finally talked. I was driving in deep thought when I heard a zing and thought, what was that? I looked around in the Yukon and looked at the dashboard. A low fuel message popped up. I had never heard or even seen that before. Kurt always kept my tank filled. I've never had to fill up on my own. I wasn't sure how far I could drive before I ran out of gas, so I immediately started looking for a gas station. I found a gas station, not the most famous one, but it has gas, and that's the most important thing. I get out of the car, grab my purse, and pull out my debit card. I insert the card, enter the number, and pull out the nozzle. I turn around and look for the gas tank cap. Shit, I say. It's on the other side of the truck. I hang the nozzle in place, sit back down, and turn the truck around. I had to put my debit card back in and pull the nozzle back out. Now I couldn't get the gas tank door open. I pulled on it, but there was no place to put my finger on it to open it. I didn't remember there ever being a button on the dashboard to open it. I looked around, but no one else was getting gas, so I couldn't ask for help. I put the nozzle back in place and went inside. There was a guy behind the counter watching TV. You could hear the loud noise from the audience. Looking closer, I saw it was a rerun of Jerry Springer's program. "Excuse me," I said. "What can I do for you?" he replied, barely taking his eyes off the screen. "I don't know how to get to the gas tank cap." He looked at my car and asked, "How long have you been driving it?" "A couple years, but my husband puts gas in it for me." "Just press the right edge of the door and it will open." Suddenly, the crowd at the TV boomed and buzzed. The guy behind the counter looked at the TV and said softly, "What a bitch." "What?" said I. "Sorry, not you. That's the woman from the show." He pointed at the TV. I looked closer and saw a caption at the bottom of the screen. It read, "I cut off my husband, but not my boyfriend." I stood and watched as the woman said, "He's a great father and provider, but I'm no longer satisfied with him in the bedroom." I just stared at her, and then the clerk said, "I can't believe that bitch. How could she do that to him?" I felt I had to defend her. Maybe she needed to feel like she was still beautiful. If her husband doesn't give her that feeling, then she should just divorce him. I know that if I were him, I would dump her like a bad habit. I'd kick her to the curb. I couldn't say anything. That's what Kurt was doing to me. I blushed, turned around, walked out, and mindlessly headed for my Yukon. I opened the gas tank door, removed the cap, pulled out the nozzle, and inserted it into the hole. I turned around and put my debit card back in. It wouldn't authorize. I went back and asked the clerk why. "Let me try here," he said. He tried it and said, "It's not working. Do you have another card?" Oh no. I thought, did Kurt cancel my card? I pulled out my wallet and handed him my MasterCard. Luckily, it was still working. "It's okay. I thought maybe your cards were canceled." He looked at me with a look that said, "I bet they'll be canceled soon." I refueled and drove off, my mind spinning with the possible consequences of my actions. I tried calling Kurt again, but again I got voicemail. "Kurt." I didn't expect to hear Sue on the other end of the line. I thought it was Glenn calling me back with something to say, that I was going to tell her when we talked. I wondered where she was calling me from, so I checked her GPS. She was just over halfway back to Aberdeen. I don't want to talk to her. I need to go somewhere. I don't want to be here when she gets back. I go upstairs and pack a couple bags. When I get back to the living room, I see a picture above the fireplace, a picture of us as a family, taken when the kids were young. Those were happier times. Finances were tight back then, but we were happy raising our 3 children. There was our wedding picture hanging on the mantel. I just stared at it. She had ruined our family. I walked over to the mantel, picked up the picture, and hit it with my fist. The glass in the frame shattered and some blood appeared on my knuckles. I took off my wedding ring and put it on the mantel and placed the photo face down on it. I looked around and then walked out to my car, leaving the door unlocked. I drove off, intending to spend the night in a hotel. Checking into my room, I called Julia, my second child. "Hi, Jules," my nickname for her. "Hi, Daddy, how are you doing?" "Do you have time to talk?" I asked. "Sure, Daddy, that sounds serious." "It is, honey." "Talk, I'm listening." "Jules, your mom and I have a problem." "Dad, you and Mom had a problem before I left for college 2 years ago." "What's the problem now?" "Well, you know we both love you, all of you guys. It's just that there have been some recent events that have taken things to the extreme. It's not going to be easy to say. We're getting a divorce." "Dad, I hate to hear that, but honestly, it doesn't surprise me. Before I left for college, you two fought a lot. It seemed like you were never at ease with each other. I don't know what the problems were, but I'll tell you this. You two were not the parents I grew up with. That was my Jules. She was always perceptive. She knew almost immediately that Glenn or Rachel was worried or upset about something, even before Sue and I noticed anything. Well, kids, it had nothing to do with you. It was something between me and your mom. Have you tried seeing a counselor? That might help? I guess it's not that important now, honey, I said. I'd like you to try with your dad. I'd hate to see you alone. I'll think about it, said I not very convincingly. Really, Dad, think about it. Talk to someone before you decide to drop everything. I'll think about it, said I with more conviction in my voice. I've already talked to Glenn and told him, and I'll call Rachel a little later. Don't worry, Jules, I'll keep you posted on the progress. Thanks, Dad, she said with a hitch in her voice. I could tell she was about to cry. I'll let you go. I love you, remember that. We both love you. Now I was the only one who was going to cry. I love you too, Daddy. I hung up and turned the phone off, unable to speak. I gasped and started to cry. Why is she doing this to us? I said out loud. I sat on the bed in the hotel room and cried for about 10 minutes. I cried for 26 years gone to nothing. Sue. I pulled into the driveway and noticed that Kurt's car wasn't there. I guess, in fact, I knew it wouldn't be there. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. I didn't need the key. When I grabbed the handle, it opened immediately. That was unusual. Kurt must still be here. Maybe his car is in the garage. I walk in and cautiously call his name. There is no answer. He must be here. He never leaves the door unlocked. I make my way inside, but the house seems too empty. I look around and don't notice anything has changed. I look at the fireplace and see the family photo still hanging there, reminding me of better times. Then I notice our wedding picture. It's lying face down on the mantel. I walk over and pick it up. I notice the glass is broken, some lying on the mantel, and Kurt's wedding ring is lying among the glass. Oh my God, what have I done? Kurt? After crying, I turn my phone back on to call Rachel, my baby girl. Hey Dad, I tried to call you but went to voicemail. But I couldn't leave a message, it's full. Hi Rachel, what was your call about? Dad, Julia called me. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask her not to call you. I wanted you to hear it from me first. So what did she tell you? You're getting a divorce. Is that true? Yes, I filed, I said. Well, I can't say I'm surprised. Huh? Said I. Dad, you and Mom fought for a couple years and then, about a year and a half ago, you just stopped. You barely talked at all. All you did was discuss bills that needed to be paid, chores around the house, and whether or not you were going to see any of your friends this weekend. It took me a few seconds to realize this. My youngest daughter had already determined years ago that we were no longer acting like a married couple. It came as no surprise to her that we were divorcing. She didn't even ask why or why now. Wow, I guess I didn't even realize it, I told her. Dad, we all know you both love us. I just don't know if you love each other. If you do, you don't show it. Daddy, you have to do what will make you happy. I wouldn't want you to live in a loveless marriage for the rest of your life just because you're supposed to, or because of us kids. We're adults now. Rachel, you always told it like it is. Thank you. You made this decision so much easier. I love you. I love you too, Dad. I'll support you no matter what happens. I'll always be there for you. You're my daddy, I gasped. I have to go, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. I hung up and turned the phone off. Now I really didn't feel like talking to anyone. Sue. My phone rang and I looked at it and saw that it was Julia calling me. How am I going to talk to her? What am I going to say? After the third ring, I answered. Hi, Julia. How are you doing? How are you doing? Is that a better question? Fine. Why? I asked, hoping Kurt wasn't talking to our kids. My dad called me, she said. And what did he have to say? I asked, still not realizing she knew. I hoped she didn't know anything. He said you're getting a divorce. I sighed. We're not getting a divorce. It's just a misunderstanding. Well, it sounded more serious when I talked to him. We'll get through this, I told her, trying to convince myself as well. Rachel said he already applied, she told me. Yes, I was served this morning, I said solemnly. I know that before I left for college, there was a lot of tension between you two and you fought a lot. Rachel said that after I left for college, you stopped fighting and hardly ever spoke. Did it really last that long? After years of fighting and tiptoeing around each other, it was nice not to fight anymore. We just went about our business, taking care of what needed to be done. I think you and Dad should go to counseling. It might help your relationship, she said. That sounds like a good plan. I'll discuss it with him if I ever get a chance to talk to him, I said. What do you mean? I keep trying to call him and he doesn't answer. I'm home now and he's not here. Do you know where he went? Did he say when you talked to him? No, Mom, I thought he was home with you. No, he's gone. And if I know your father, he's gone somewhere I can't find him. I thought where he might be, a hotel or a friend's house. I should check to see if he took a change of clothes. I walked over to our room. There were doors and drawers open. Julia, I need to try and find your father. I'll call you if I find him. If you hear from him, please tell him to call me. Sure, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow if I don't hear from him sooner. Thank you, Julia. I love you. I know, Mom. I love you too. Kurt? I wasn't really hungry, but I hadn't eaten all day, so I ordered pizza delivery. I thought about what Rachel had said. We hadn't been much like each other for the last 3 years. Menopause be damned. Why couldn't she have gotten hormone replacement therapy? It would have alleviated a lot of these problems. That's when it all started. Her doctor told her it would help her through menopause, but she didn't want to take any medication. Even after Rachel was born, I had to wear rubber bands because she didn't want to get pregnant and also didn't want to take birth control. While we were trying to have kids, I enjoyed the feeling of not having rubbers, so I decided to have a vasectomy instead of wearing rubbers. When the pizza arrived, I sat on the bed, watched TV, and ate pizza. I can tell you that there is not much worth watching on a Saturday night. My brain wasn't engrossed in it. It was just background noise. Sue. I turned on the TV but found nothing to distract me from my worries. My thoughts were spinning and the TV became just background noise. As I saw the empty closet and drawers, I felt everything start to fall into place. Strange, you'd think serving divorce papers would do that. Having an actual physical sign that my husband had left me meant that I wouldn't be able to just talk myself out of it. My marriage may indeed have come to an end. Tonight I won't be dealing with empty drawers in a closet, but sleeping in one of the kids' rooms. Oh God, I should call Glenn and Rachel, try to get them on my side. Maybe if they all talk to Kurt, they can at least get him to talk to me. Maybe even consider marital counseling. I picked up the phone and called Glenn. It rang 4 times, then someone answered. I heard, Glenn, it's your mom. You need to talk to her. It was Janie, Glenn's steady girlfriend who would soon be his wife. He confided in Kurt and me that he was going to propose to her on New Year's Eve. I don't want to talk to her, I heard in the background. Glenn, get that phone, you need to talk to her, she said. Then to me, he'll be right there, Mom. I guess that answers one of my questions. Kurt must have told him why he was divorcing me. Mom, he said unemotionally. Oh, Glenn, you have to help me get your father to talk to me. I don't even want to talk to you. Why would Dad want to do that? He said. Oh my God, this could ruin my relationship with my son and also with my husband, thought I to myself. Glenn, I don't know what your father told you, but I know we can work things out if he would just talk to me. I don't think so, Mom. Anyway, I don't know where he is, and if you can't reach him, I'm sure his phone is off. Well, if you hear from him, please ask him to call me. Okay, Mom, but I'm not going to ask him. Thanks, Glenn, I love you. He hung up without even saying goodbye. Next, I called Rachel. Hi, honey, how are you doing? I said when she answered, trying to keep the conversation light. I'm doing fine, Mom. How are you? She was trying to keep the conversation light, too. I wondered why. Have you heard anything about your dad? I asked. Yes, he called me today. To be honest, Mom, I expected him to call me a year ago, shortly after I left for college. What makes you think that? Mom, you and Dad hardly communicated at all during my last year there. I never once saw you two touch each other, let alone kiss. I think you both need to find someone you'll be happy with. Rachel, my youngest, has always been a pragmatist. I even feel bad for the guy she'll end up with. She'll definitely tell it like it is, and if he doesn't like it, she won't care. However, maybe she'll find someone to put her in her place. If you could ask him to talk to me, I'd really appreciate it. I think he'd listen to you. She's his girl, of course he'll listen to her. Okay, Mom, I hope he calls you. Me too, Rachel, me too, I said as we finished talking. My son was pissed at me, and my youngest daughter didn't seem to care if we divorced or not. Wow, I really screwed up. I stayed up until almost midnight, but neither my kids nor my husband called. I decided to go to bed alone. I stayed in Julia's room, which made me feel a little better since she at least wanted us to go to counseling. Kurt. I was beaten up. Truth be told, I hadn't gotten much sleep in the last 2 weeks and I was pretty depressed. The adrenaline from the day was gone. I went to bed and slept the sleep of the dead until 11 o'clock Sunday morning. I showered and didn't shave. When I sat down to eat my warmed-up pizza, I decided to call my kids and let them know I was still alive. They were all happy to hear from me and also told me that Sue had called and asked me to call her. I decided that today was the day. We'll talk, and unless hell freezes over, I'll proceed with the divorce. I dialed a number I knew well, and she picked up on the first ring. Oh, Kurt, thanks for calling. I want to apologize first. The kids asked me to call you. What do you need? I said unemotionally. I want to talk. Can we do that? We're talking right now, so talk. No, I mean face to face. Why don't you come home and we can sit down and talk about it together? I thought for a second, then said, Sure, I need to pick up a few things I left behind. That should have let her know how I felt about it. Can you come over at 2 o'clock? She said, ignoring my last comment. Sure, and your lover will be gone by then? That should have pushed the knife up a little more. Oh, Kurt, I'm sorry, but there's no one else. I'll see you at 2 o'clock. Then I hung up the phone. I wondered if anyone was there now or had been before. Maybe I would do a little recon and see for myself. I got in my car and drove past the house. There were no cars in the driveway, but maybe he parked in the garage. I parked on a neighboring street and watched him for about half an hour. No one came or went. Well, looks like she wasn't lying. I should probably shave before I go back, I said to myself. I went back to the hotel, shaved, dressed in a nice business suit, and even put on some aftershave cream. Let her see what she threw out. Sue. Finally, he called me. He was brief, unemotional, and even made a vindictive comment, but he was going to arrive at 2 o'clock. I had to get ready. First, I would make a nice dinner so we could talk over a meal, and then I would go dress nicely so he could see what he was throwing away. Confrontation. I park on the street, I set the tone from the start. I don't even want to park in my own driveway. That's what it says. Why is he parking on the street? The driveway is clear. He could even park in the garage, I thought to myself. As he walked down the driveway, I noticed he was dressed pretty well for an off day. Usually on the weekends, he goes around in a t-shirt and jeans. I have to greet him at the door and thank him for coming. The door opens and Sue stands there with a concerned, questioning smile on her face. She looks quite decently dressed. Is this for me or does she have a date tonight? I ask myself. Opening the door, I smile at Kurt, but realize the smile probably looks strained. I was happy to see him, but worried about what was going to happen. Why did you park on the street? Oh, and thanks for coming over, I said nervously. You're welcome, and I wasn't sure if there was anyone parked in the garage who might need to get out. I said this and saw an angry expression appear on her face. Great, my punch had had the desired result. This was not a pleasant encounter. Kurt had pissed me off with that comment, but I wasn't going to respond. I wanted this meeting to be pleasant so we could discuss our future together. If I had to put up with my husband's childish behavior, I would. Come in, I made dinner, everything is ready. Sit at the table. I'm here to talk, not eat. Can't we do both? We can have a nice meal while discussing our problems. No, I'm not hungry. I have somewhere to go as soon as we're done, said I. Okay, so I lied. I didn't have anywhere to go, but she didn't need to know that. So that's why he's dressed up like that? I thought to myself. One day and he's already dating some whore after he leaves here. Oh, I said, and you can't call and cancel a date. Who is this guy anyway? I regretted saying it right after I uttered it. I don't have a date. I don't go on dates when I'm married, unlike someone I know, I told her. That pissed me off. Oh shit, I thought to myself. I just blew this meeting. How could I say that to him? I'm sorry, Kurt, my emotions took over. Did they take over you Friday night and Saturday too? I asked her. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Kurt, please forgive me. I don't think that will ever happen, Sue. When I said that, I saw her shoulders slump. She probably thinks she's defeated now, but I'm just getting started. Well, you asked me to come here to talk. Let's talk. I made my way into the living room and sat down in a chair, and she sat across from me on the couch. Okay, Kurt, I'm really sorry, she said. Are you sorry for what you did or for getting caught? I sat there for a minute, pondering, which is it? If I was being truthful, then I was sorry I got caught. If I hadn't been caught, I would have sat there until tonight. But I was sorry I hurt him, now that he knew. I'm sorry I hurt you, I decided to say. That doesn't answer my question, Sue. I could see her struggling in her head with the real question. Kurt, I don't know, I said quietly. Sue, you have to answer all my questions truthfully. If you lie to me, we will never have a relationship again. I will, Kurt, ask me anything. Did you feel any guilt Friday night driving to Sioux Falls? Yes, I answered honestly. Where did you meet him? How did it come to this? He's a salesman who comes into our company once a week. He's always been really nice to me. So how did you go from meeting him for a couple minutes once a week to having fun with him for the weekend? I shuddered. That's all it was, entertainment. I like David, but in the long run it wouldn't lead to anything. After all, I'm married, at least for now, I thought. He asked me to lunch, and I said yes. What's wrong with that? Tell me, what's wrong with that? Nothing if it was just one lunch, but we started going to lunch every week when he made sales calls. And how long did that last? It went on for several months. You didn't think there was any problem with that? He was so nice and really complimented me and my looks. He made me feel young again. So that's all it takes to get in your pants? Just compliments and niceness? I had to put that remark in, since I hadn't gotten in her pants in over 3 years. No, Kurt, we were just comfortable with each other, and then he asked me to go with him to a bed and breakfast for the weekend. So he was the first? He must not have been the first because I'm sure the other guys were nice and complimented you. When was the first time? I've never done it before him, Kurt. You have to believe me. No, I don't have to believe you, I said loudly. When was the first time and with whom? Friday night with David. She did it, she lied. You don't spend hours in a hotel room just talking. I stood up without saying a word and walked to the front door. Where did he go? I thought as he got up and started to leave. He headed for the door. Kurt, don't leave. We're not done talking yet. I got up and followed him. He turned around and looked at me with a mixed expression of sadness and hatred on his face. Sue, you lied to me. I told you that if we were going to have any kind of relationship, you had to answer my questions truthfully. You lied, Sue. You lied. Oh my God, I did lie. I thought, how did he know about the time we spent together a couple weeks ago? God, I'm stupid. Of course he knew. How else could he get me to serve if he didn't know? I collapsed back onto the couch, resting my head on my hands and cried. I'm sorry, Kurt, I lied. We were already together about 2 weeks ago. I took the day off and we went to a hotel. How had he found out about that incident? He was working late that night. I even cooked his favorite meal that had gone cold waiting for him to come home. Oh God, he knew he came home late on purpose and I yelled at him for not calling me, thought I. So what are we going to do next, Kurt? I asked. You're going to get yourself a lawyer and we're going to get a divorce. So you're going to ruin a good marriage over this? Yes, 23 years of a good marriage gone down the drain. Kurt, it's been 26 years. He couldn't even remember how many years we'd been married. Yes, but only 23 years of a good marriage. The last 3 have been a waste of my time. Now I was out of my mind. He thought the last 3 years had been a waste of time. How could he think that? I jumped on him. Screw you, Kurt! Not the last 3 years. What did he say? Thought I. Then I said, oh, not the last 3 years? What do you mean? I mean, we haven't had fun in over 3 years. Is that what this is about, sex? Yes, sex. You can give it to someone else but your husband who you've cut off from you for over 3 years. How many conversations, discussions, and arguments have we had because of that? I reflected. We had had nothing, no real intimacy for over 3 years. I didn't want or need him when menopause hit. I begged, tried to turn you on, and even pleaded with you, but you told me to get over it. Well, I guess that's what I'll do with it. I'm just sorry I procrastinated for so long. So you're giving up on our marriage? Rachel noticed it long before I did. She just told me yesterday that I have to do what makes me happy and that I can't live in a loveless marriage just because that's what I'm supposed to do. I told her. So you're throwing away our marriage. What do you think we should do, Sue? Julia thinks we should go to counseling. I think that's a great idea. For what purpose, Sue? So that we can live happily ever after until death do us part. Nice, I remember those vows. I also remember forsake all others. Did you forget that or does it not matter? As far as I'm concerned, once you've broken your vows, all the others don't mean a damn thing. But I still love you, Kurt. You have a strange way of showing it. I told her, goodbye, Sue. Get a lawyer. With those words, I walked out the door. Sue. He walked out the door. All my plans for a nice dinner and conversation went to waste. I had hoped that I could explain myself, that he would understand my side, that I needed to feel attractive and desirable to someone 10 years younger than me. Now I am an old woman, unable to have children, slowly trudging to the end of the road. I sat there crying for I don't know how long, probably at least an hour. When the phone rang, it brought me out of my daze. I looked at the phone. It was Julia. Mom, are you okay? Did you get through to Dad? I asked him to call you. Did he call? Yes, Julia, he called. I asked him to come over. He came over. We had a fight. Then he left. Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. Did he even tell you why he was filing for divorce? I already knew why, Julia. He just said it straight out. So why? I had to face facts. Sooner or later, everyone would find out, and there was no reason to try to hide it. I cheated on him, I said in a quiet voice. What? I was stupid, and he found out. He even made me serve when I was with a guy. I'm so ashamed. I never wanted that to happen. Why was I an idiot? Soon I'll be an almost 50-year-old divorced idiot. I started crying again. I couldn't believe I had any tears left. Oh, Mom, how could you? I knew you and Daddy didn't get along, but how could you? I'm sorry, Julia. I know we fought a lot, but I still love him. And now he's gone. Maybe he just needs time. Maybe you can work it out with the help of a counselor. I'd like to think so, but I don't hold out much hope. Your dad is a proud, stubborn man. He'll never forgive me. So because of his male ego and pride, he's willing to throw away your marriage. I've asked him that too, but honestly, it hasn't been that kind of marriage for the past few years, and it's all my fault. I started crying harder and dropped the phone. Mom! Mom! Mommy! Screamed Julia. I picked up the phone. I'm sorry, honey, I dropped the phone. Mom, I'm going home. Maybe I can get Daddy and we can talk things over. Honey, I think this is a waste of time. I don't care, I'm going home. I'll see you in a few hours. My daughter was about to come home from college to try to talk her father into getting his cheating wife back. What had I done? My selfish need to be wanted by some other guy caused my life to fall apart, and my family is paying the price. Kurt. I just talked to Julia. She's coming home from college to try to save this marriage. It can't be saved anymore. 3 years of putting up with Sue's crap is what turned me away from our marriage. And the fact that she gave the other guy what she denied me all this time was definitely the match that lit the fuse to the destruction of this marriage. I don't usually drink, but here I felt like hitting the nearest bar. I turned off my phone and walked out the door of my hotel room. Let them try to find me. Sue. Julia arrived and tried to call Kurt, but the call went straight to voicemail. His cell phone was off. It was getting late and I decided I just wanted to go to bed. Tomorrow I'm going to go to work sick. Then I'll try to meet up with Kurt. Kurt. I spent a couple hours sipping beer. I wasn't drunk, but I wasn't in pain either. I set the alarm on my phone for 6 o'clock and then listened to my messages. There were a couple from my wife, the usual apology nonsense. Then there were 2 from Julia asking if we could meet tomorrow after I got home from work. I wasn't going to work. I had things to do. I had to meet with a lawyer and take care of some banking issues. For now, I was going to sleep it off and hope I didn't have a hangover in the morning. Sue. I didn't get much sleep. I did fall asleep, though, as I was exhausted from the events of the weekend. I woke up to the smell of bacon. Kurt always made breakfast on the weekends. Was this all a dream or more like a nightmare? Was it really Saturday morning and I was still happily married? Then Julia called from downstairs and I realized the nightmare was real. I got up, called work, and asked for a medical leave of absence. There was no way I could go to work today. I had things I had to do. Together with Julia, I had to plan how to get Kurt back. I also needed to get the other 2 kids on my side, as well as Janie. Kurt liked her and thought she would be a good fit for Glenn. Breakfast was good. I hardly ate anything yesterday. The food I made for Kurt went to the refrigerator as leftovers. I think Julia and I will split them between us. I called Rachel and Glenn and left messages for them to call me. Rachel was undoubtedly in class and Glenn was at work. I called Janie. She worked in retail, so she had Mondays off. Hi, Janie. This is Glenn's mom. Do you have time to talk? Sure, Mom. She had been calling me that for a year now. It made me feel good to know that she liked me and felt comfortable enough to address me that way. How's Glenn? He's pissed. Doesn't even want to talk about it. Janie, could you ask him to call me? I need to talk to him about his father. What's going on, Mom? I did something that upset his father, and now he wants to ruin our marriage. Oh, no. I can't believe it. You've been married for over 25 years. I can't believe you can't work it out no matter what. Love conquers all. I think we can if Kurt gives us a chance. That's why I'm calling. Could you call Kurt and just talk to him? Tell him how much you'd hate it if we got divorced? Sure, Mom, anything for you. I want to give you grandchildren someday, and I'd like you to still be together. Thanks, Janie, I'd like that too. Kurt. I woke up and called into work, then took a shower and got dressed. I felt pretty good. I had a slight headache, but I could deal with that. The first thing I decided to do was eat breakfast and then call my lawyer to make an appointment. When I got through to him, he said he had time later in the morning. Before that, I could go to the bank. After that, I would need to look for an apartment. I went to the bank, opened a separate account, paid off my credit card, and split our funds, putting half into my account. After leaving the bank, I turned on my phone to get a list of apartment complexes. As soon as I turned it on, voicemails and messages popped up on the screen. Julia was calling and texting me. She wanted us to meet. It made me a little angry that Sue had made her drop out of college and come home to help her cope. I called her. Hey, Jules, you shouldn't have slacked off on your studies. I came home to see if I could save your marriage. This is my mom and I's business. You don't need to get involved. Dad, this is our family, and I'm trying to save it. I considered her words and replied, We'll still be a family even when your mom and I aren't together anymore. That won't change. Daddy, can we sit down and talk? I'd like to hear your point of view. I've already heard Mom's. Okay, let's have lunch. How about Applebee's at 12:30 p.m.? I should be done meeting with the lawyer by then, I thought. Sure, Dad, I'll see you there. Just you, Jules, not your mother. I figured Sue would come too if I didn't forbid it. Okay, Dad, she said somewhat disappointed. After meeting with the lawyer, I perked up. He said that with the picture Tom had taken when he served Sue, he thought an adulterous divorce was a no-brainer. I didn't see it, nor did I want to see it. If it would help me get a 70-30th split in the divorce, I didn't care what it depicted. I asked the attorney some procedural questions and he said, right now it's up to Sue and her attorney and how much they fight back. Then the judge will make a decision. At 12:30 p.m., I met Julia for lunch. We sat down at the table and ordered. Then she asked, Daddy, do you love her? I sat pensive. I had been thinking about this all weekend. I don't think I do. I still have feelings, but I've been thinking about it for a long time and kept coming to the conclusion that I don't know. So many things have happened between us that have distanced us from each other. Of course, she is still dear to me as the woman I lived with for years and have children with, but I think the love is gone. I could see the look of hope and despair change on her face as I spoke. Jules, I still love you and your brother and sister, and that will never change. I just don't see us going back after this. She sat in silence. Jules, you're all grown up and in college now. Soon you'll be married and have a family of your own. We'll still be your parents. We'll just be living under two different roofs. I thought you two were going to live forever. Jules, you've been in several relationships. What do you think are the aspects of a good relationship, a good marriage? She took a deep breath, thought for a minute, and replied, First and foremost, love. I just told you I don't think I love her anymore. What else? Respect. Do you think I respect your mom now, and do you think she respects me knowing she did what she did? I don't know. What else? I asked. Commitment, she said. What do you mean? Asked I. Sticking to it when times get tough? Times have been hard for over 3 years, Julia. You know that. How long do I have to put up with it? I don't know. Okay, what else? Patience and forgiveness. I've been patient with her, but I don't think I can forgive her for what she did. It was just one time, Dad. No, it wasn't one time. It may have only been one guy, I don't know that for sure, but it was at least one time plus weekends together. She said it was one time. You need to talk to your mom about this. What I say won't change your mind. What else do you think makes a marriage good? Honesty. Do you think your mom has been honest with me? No, so I guess another aspect is trust. I'm sure you won't trust her anymore. No, I don't think I can. What else? I asked. Good communication. Jules, before you left for college, what do you remember about our communication? You were either fighting or barely talking at all. Is there anything else that makes up a good marriage? Selflessness, a willingness to do anything for your partner, even if it's not what you want to do. That's good. You left out one aspect. What do you think it is? Well, physical intimacy, of course. That goes without saying. I'd like you to ask your mom about it, see what she says. Julia looked at me with a puzzled expression on her face. At that moment, the waitress came in with the food. Jules, let's enjoy our food and change the subject. Let's have a great father-daughter dinner. Okay, she said. I could see she was trying to make sense of everything we had just talked about. By the end of lunch, we were talking about school, boyfriends, politics, just about everything. But the elephant was still in the room. Jules, tell your mom to get a lawyer. It's the only way we can work something out. I will, Dad, she said meekly. After lunch, I went to Central Park. I sat on a bench just watching people and enjoying the fall day. As I sat there, I thought about my conversation with Julia. She had accurately summarized many of the reasons I was divorcing Sue. I hoped it would be over quickly, but I had my doubts about that. On Tuesday, I went back to work. I have to admit that my thoughts were not occupied with work at all. Sure, I was thinking about Sue, but I was also thinking about what kind of jerk was hitting on a married woman. He had to pay somehow. Karma could be a bitch, but I wanted to help her out a little. I needed to find out more about this David Perkins guy. All I knew was that he was a divorced 38-year-old man with 2 kids who worked at Heartland Paper. So I called in a private investigator. I gave him all the information I had on him, paid his debit card bail, and told him to contact me when he had dirt on him. I know it's stupid to throw good money away on bad garbage, but I needed the information, and if Sue kept seeing him, it would add fuel to the funeral pyre of my marriage. Around 3 in the afternoon, my friend and coworker Eric Van Dorn peeked into my office and said, "Are you free for lunch tomorrow?" "If you're buying, I'm free all week," I said. "No, I'm not buying. We're going to Holland because you know what they say." Yeah, if you're not Dutch, you're not much." He said it so many times I swear I heard it in my sleep. "Then I'll stop by tomorrow around noon, okay?" he asked. "Sure," I replied. Eric is the head of purchasing at our plant. That's a fancy title for someone who does procurement. He's really good at it. If I didn't know better, I would have thought he was a woman, since he likes to store and on other people's money. Plus, he's Dutch, so he always finds the best deals. I wouldn't say he's cheap, but that's only because I don't speak ill of my friends. That night I sat in my hotel room and couldn't decide which apartment to rent. There was no hurry, but I wanted a good one, because I could stay there for a long time. The phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I answered it anyway. Hi, Dad. It was actually Janie, not my real daughter. But after Glenn and her had been dating for about a year, I insisted she call me Daddy. Hi, Janie, what can I do for you? You can forgive your wife, she stated peremptorily. That's not going to happen anytime soon, Janie, said I curtly. Why? Don't you love her? Isn't she your wife? Doesn't she deserve your forgiveness? Janie, this is not a conversation we should be having, I said sternly. I think love can conquer all things, so I think you can overcome this. Janie, I don't mean to be rude, but our problems with Sue are ours to solve or not to solve. Don't try to interfere. She stammered. Goodbye, Janie. I hung up the phone. I was furious. Sue was making others try to convince me to take her back. She should be the one to blame, not me. Now I was worked up and I wasn't going to fall asleep anytime soon. I decided to go to the gym and run on the treadmill. Running allows me to let out the energy that has built up in my mind to think. I analyze my life, all the good times. I will always have these memories with or without my marriage. What did the future hold for me if I got her back? All I could think about was that if I decide to stay married, I will never forget her actions, both 3 years before and after the affair. I would always harbor animosity toward her. What kind of marriage would that be? Would I always want to get back at her for what she did? If I somehow managed to stay married, what kind of marriage would that be, even more like the one we've had for the past 3 years? No thanks. I looked down at the treadmill. I had run 4 miles and didn't even notice. Maybe I should get mad more often before running. It would help me run a marathon. I got off the treadmill and headed back to my room, wiping myself off with a towel. I'll sleep well now as I'm exhausted to the max. Sue, I went out to work again today. I was distracted, but I still did my job. I was glad to get home even though it was so empty. Julia went back to school early in the morning. I got busy doing laundry to take my mind off my problems. As I carried the basket of dry laundry into our bedroom, the phone rang. I put the clothes on the bed and pulled out the phone. It was Janie. Mom, I think Kurt is mad at me. I called him and told him he should forgive you, and he quickly blew me off. He's a stubborn man. All men are like that, Janie, I explained. Well, I think he's being stupid. You guys can get over it. I hope so, said I. Sorry, Mom, Glenn just walked in. I'll talk to you later. Now I felt bad for dragging her into this. I didn't think Kurt would be rude to her. I guess I was wrong. I guess I don't know Kurt as well as I thought I did. Kurt. Wednesday at lunch with Eric, as soon as we sat down at the table, he said, What's going on with you, Kurt? What do you mean? I asked. You haven't been yourself for at least the last 2 weeks, and then you called on Monday. That's not you. You never miss work except when you go on vacation. I didn't realize it was so obvious, I said. To most people it isn't, but to me it is. I was quiet for a minute, then said, I'm getting a divorce. What, really? You've been married forever. No, only 26 years, and we won't make it to 27. What happened? It started a long time ago, but the interesting thing is that she's having an affair. The restaurant seemed to go silent when I said that. Then Eric said, Damn, I feel sorry for Kurt. Yeah, me too. Do you think it'll work out? No way, I'm pissed at her for what she's done to me over the last 3 years. I'll never get over it. 3 years? She had an affair for 3 years? No, but 3 years ago she cut me off from herself. No romance, no teasing, not even pleading made a difference. She told me to get over it. Well, now I'm dealing with it. Wow, what a bitch. Yeah, life is a bitch, but I intend to change that, pronounced I. So who is this guy? His name is David Perkins. He's a salesman for Heartland Paper out of Sioux Falls. He supplies mid-states with paper, so he makes the rounds every week. She's been having lunch with him for at least 3 months now. What an ass, I'm sure he knew she was married, he said. Yeah, why don't we change the subject? I want to have a nice lunch, and this is upsetting my stomach. Sure. The rest of lunch went fine, and we didn't talk about my problems at all. Sue. Another day at work, business as usual. My boss pulled me into his office. Sue, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself. Problems at home, I'd rather not get into them, said I. Well, don't let it affect your work. If you need to take time off to sort things out, let me know. No, I'll be fine. I'm sorry, I'll focus on my work, said I. Okay, thanks. I need Sue, who I'm used to relying on. You have her, said I. The rest of the day I focused on work. It really helped me forget about my problems for at least a little while. After work, I went home again to an empty house. Thursday at work, I looked at my watch. David stopped around 11:30 on Thursday. What am I going to tell him? What would he say to me? When he walked in, I flinched. He looked at me without any emotion on his face. He walked in and talked to my boss. It was normal. He was discussing the week's order and future needs. When he walked out and closed the door, he looked at me and said, "I can't believe you just left like that." Shh, not so loud. Why don't you want anyone to know? Have you made up with your husband? Let's not talk about it here. Meet me at lunch and we'll talk about it, I said quietly. I didn't want my boss or anyone else to get any ideas. I would meet him at lunch and tell him that this whole thing was a mistake, that we shouldn't have done it. Okay, I'll see you at our usual place. I take it you're driving yourself. Yeah, I'll be there. At noon, I got out and drove to Minerva's. He was sitting there in a booth. When I approached, he smiled and said, "Have a seat." I sat down and said, "David, I'm sorry about last weekend. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have said yes." "So you didn't enjoy it?" "You didn't enjoy it?" "Yes, it was enjoyable," I said, remembering how much time and attention he gave me. "So what are your regrets?" "It was a mistake. I'm a married woman, and it could cost me my marriage." "You said yourself you were more like roommates. It doesn't sound like it cost you much." "Well, I have to try to make up for that. So I got dumped halfway through a weekend I paid over $400 for, and you're apologizing." I looked at him. I hadn't seen that side of him yet. What did he want me to pay him back for the room? "Don't look at me like that," he said. "You know exactly why we were going there. I expected to spend the whole weekend doing this with you. And I thought you wanted to spend time with me, not just," I said, getting up and getting ready to leave. "Stupid bitch," he shouted. "I hope he divorces you." I turned and glared at him and then walked away. "Men only want one thing," I said, walking towards the Yukon. I went back to work and picked myself up and finished the day, trying to focus on work. "Kurt, I got a call from a private investigator. He said my wife met the creep for lunch, but it didn't last long. They had an argument and she left. It won't change anything in the long run, but it made me feel better. Maybe she really regretted her decision. Sue." That night, I finally got a call back from Rachel. "Hi, Mom, did you call?" "Yes, why did you wait so long to call me back?" "Julia called me and told me why Dad is divorcing you." "How could you?" "I know you were unhappy, but why didn't you just ask for a divorce?" "I wasn't unhappy. I don't want a divorce." "That's a strange way to try to save your marriage." "I don't blame Dad." "I hope it was worth it." "Oh God, Rachel, you have to help me deal with this." "I know he'll listen to you." "No, Mom, you're on your own." I was alone, sitting in an empty house, trying to figure out how to fix my mistake. Every day it looked more hopeless. Kurt. My weekend was spent looking for an apartment. Sunday afternoon, I found one that fit my needs. It was a 2-bedroom in case one of the kids wanted to stay. Sue. I spent the weekend looking around the house, remembering all the good times we had, all the Christmases, Easters, birthdays, and Thanksgivings. Thanksgiving was only a couple weeks away. Would we be together on that day? Would there be much to be thankful for? I decided to make sure all the kids would be here. I called all the kids. Rachel and Julia confirmed when I told them I would invite Daddy and asked if they would ask him to come too, for the family. Glenn was a little harder to convince, but with Janie in the background, he finally agreed. Now it was up to me to put my best foot forward to make this dinner bring back fond memories. Kurt? On Tuesday, I received an invitation in the mail. It was from Sue inviting me to a Thanksgiving dinner at our house. I threw the invitation away. The only thing I was thankful for this year was that I finally made the decision to end this whole shebang. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved into my apartment, picked up furniture on Craigslist, and set up a new home for myself. I also got a call from Rachel saying that her mom had asked her to call me and invite me over for Thanksgiving. She understood when I said no. Glenn also understood when I returned the favor. Julia, however, begged me to change my mind, and although I had a hard time saying no to her, I still agreed. Fortunately, Janie didn't call me. Apparently, she understood what I was talking about last time. The Monday before Thanksgiving, I was walking to my car after work and saw Sue's Yukon parked next to my car. She got out of the car as I approached. She was well-dressed and looked great. Confrontation. Part 2. "Kurt," I said with a smile and in my nicest voice. "What do you want, Sue?" said I very sharply. "I never got a response to the invitation to Thanksgiving dinner. I'd really appreciate it if you'd come, and so would the kids." I hoped he couldn't say no in person, especially if I mentioned the kids. "That's because I threw it away the same day I got it," I told her, hoping she understood what I was talking about. I hope you thought about it and changed your mind about coming for the sake of your family. I had to get him to focus on the kids. I already told the kids no when you asked them to call me. They know I'm not coming. Why don't you invite your lover instead of me? I'm sure he won't go to his ex-wife since she remarried. Oh, but maybe he'll go to one of his other whores. You know he has 3 other women in mind, and 2 of them are married. I guess he likes to entertain married women. What was he telling me? David had 3 other women in mind besides me, and 2 of them are married? He's not my lover. I've barely spoken to him since that weekend. I realized from the look on her face that she didn't know about the other women. The money I'd spent on a private investigator was worth it to see that expression on her face. Yes, I heard you had a fight when you went to lunch with him the following week. From the look on your face, I'm guessing he didn't tell you about his other women. Oh, Kurt, can we just forget about it? I'll never do anything like that again. Go through this so I can go home to a loveless marriage? No thanks. If you want it, I can give it to you. I had to make him forget that objection. Sue, I can't make love to you because I don't love you anymore. I'm sure you weren't worried about being pregnant anymore. So he must have given you some kind of disease. If you haven't already, you should get checked out for your own good. Oh shit, I thought to myself. Kurt was right because I knew I couldn't get pregnant. I should probably get tested. I made a mental note to go to my doctor. I'm sure what Kurt said is true. He probably has other women besides me. I'm so stupid. You haven't thought about it, have you, Sue? I told her. It's over. If you haven't already, get a lawyer and sign the papers, I told her. I'll get a lawyer and I'll fight it, Kurt. I know we can go back to the way things were before. You'll see. Well, at least we're making progress. She's going to get a lawyer. It's about time. I got in my car and drove away while she stood there begging me to talk to her. Sue? He drove away and we never resolved anything. Gosh, I wish we had talked it over. I got in the Yukon and drove home, crying the whole way. Tuesday at work, I notice my boss is on edge. He tells me he has a meeting with the president and vice president, and it doesn't sound good. After the meeting, he comes up to me and tells me that after lunch, there will be a mandatory meeting for everyone in the plant. At 2 o'clock, we fill the lunchroom. The president is there and he opens the meeting by letting everyone know that they will have Friday off as well as Thanksgiving. There were a lot of happy faces, 4 days off. Then he gave us the bad news. Actually, he said, for the foreseeable future, you will have every Friday off. We've lost a major client and will be limited to 32 hours a week, Monday through Thursday. You'll all keep your benefits, but we'll be tightening our belts until we can find new accounts to make up the shortfall. The mood instantly changed from joyful to somber. When I returned to my desk, my boss spoke to me, asking if I knew what was going on at 3M. Nothing as far as I know. Is this the account we lost? Yes, and it accounts for most of our sales. We have to either get it back, find new customers, or downsize. So far, all the unpaid employees are working no more than 32 hours. I can't believe this. Kurt did this out of spite. Dozens of families will be affected by this, and it's a month before Christmas. I can't believe he did this. It was nearing the end of the workday, and I overheard 2 female office employees talking. It's all Sue's fault. She just needed to get weird, and now we're paying for it. What? Thought I. How did anyone know about this? Did everyone really blame it on me? As I walked around the office, I noticed people looking at me with a cold expression on their faces. At the end of the workday, I walked quickly to my Yukon, but that didn't stop me from hearing some of my coworkers call me a bitch and a slut. I needed to talk to Kurt. We had to return the 3M account. I drove up to Kurt's work, parked in front of his car again, and waited for him to come out. Kurt? I got out of work and saw Sue's Yukon parked in front of my car again. I'm sure she'll try to talk me into coming over for Thanksgiving dinner again. But it's not going to happen. I don't want to be around her. I walk to my car and Sue gets out of the Yukon. I can see that she's angry. Now what? I think to myself. You vindictive bastard. This catches me off guard. What? Don't look at me so innocently. You're being an asshole and you're going to ruin a bunch of people's Christmas just because you're mad at me. What are you talking about? I'm not ruining Christmas for anyone. The kids can see each of us individually. I'm not talking about our kids. I'm talking about the families of the people I work with. How can you? I don't know what you're talking about. We're already yelling at each other, and the people walking away are starting to stare. So you didn't get your company to refuse to do business with my company just to mess with me. They are cutting back to 32 hours a week. That's going to really hinder a lot of people's ability to give gifts for the holidays, let alone pay their bills. I was surprised by what she said. I didn't do anything. I have no control over who we buy from. Then it hit me. Eric must have done it. Wow, and he hadn't even said anything to me. I didn't do it, but maybe your actions have unintended consequences. Maybe you should have thought longer about the effect your actions would have on the people around you. Screw you! She shouted. No, thank you. No more, I yelled back. I got in my car and drove off. She was still furious, but a smile appeared on my face. I felt a little guilty in front of her coworkers, but maybe that's what she needed to realize the error of her ways. Sue. He was gone again. I was so angry with him that maybe it was for the best that we were getting divorced. How was I going to make things right? They were already talking about me at work. I'm sure it would be worse tomorrow. I drove home and walked into my empty house. I was starting to get used to it being empty. However, I wish the kids hadn't moved away, that there was some life here. I had to make Thanksgiving a good one, despite their father's absence. I started baking pies to take my mind off my problems for a little while. I loved baking. I loved cooking in general. It's what I did for my family, and it made me happy. I can't wait until they are all home enjoying a big home-cooked dinner. Kurt will miss it, at least I hope he does. Kurt. I pulled up to the apartment. It seemed empty. The furnishings were still very sparse. I kept thinking about what Sue had said. I knew Eric had done it. I would ask him about it tomorrow, but I had no doubts. As I sat and ate my dinner in the microwave, I thought about what I was going to do for Thanksgiving. I guess I could join the other single people at Pizza Ranch. It wouldn't be a home-cooked meal, but it would still be delicious. On Wednesday at work, the first thing I did was track down Eric. Hey, Eric, my wife stopped by yesterday as I was getting off work. Yeah, I heard you had an explosion in the parking lot. What was it? I think you might know. Did you move our business from Mid-States Printing? Yes, I got an offer from Quality Quick Print, and they're going to save about 2% of our printing costs. I also changed the paper and board company to Kohl's Paper out of Fargo. This is going to save us 3%. I'm sure David Perkins will feel the heat when we stop using Heartland's services. Wow, I didn't realize you were such a jerk. Remind me to stay out of your way. When someone hurts my friend, I do my best to hurt them back. What about all the people at Mid-States? My wife said they're cutting back on their hours of work. Well, surely Quality is looking for experienced people. So what else have you been doing? I asked. That's it. I think that's enough. Wow, I didn't realize I had a friend like Eric. He has powers. They say a feather is mightier than a sword. His feather just wreaked havoc on 2 people who hurt me. I almost regretted sending letters with pictures to the husbands of the 2 other married women David had slept with. Almost. Let the chips fall where they will. Sue. I was called into my boss's office a few minutes after I got to work. Oh crap, I thought to myself. Sue, I was told you might know the reason we lost the 3M account. I lowered my gaze to my hands. Yes, I knew it was because of me. I looked up. My husband denies knowing about it, but I'm sure it's revenge for something I did. What did you do? He asked, but I knew he'd already heard. I could tell by the look on his face. I was unfaithful to David Perkins. Why did you do that? He asked. I'm not getting any younger, and when a good-looking man 10 years younger than me shows interest, I feel desirable. Well, that desire could have cost us all our lives. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I messed up my life and now others are paying for my mistake. I've been apologizing a lot lately. Probably more in the last month than I have in my entire life. You know there are already rumors about this. You're going to have a rough time of it. I know, I've heard some of that already, I told him. You've been with me for almost 15 years, so I know your job. I'm not condoning what you did, but I won't punish you for it either. However, I cannot forbid others from speaking out against you. I will not tolerate offensive language, but I will draw the line here. Thank you. I will do everything in my power to try and fix it. I promised him. That would go a long way toward earning your forgiveness, he said. Thank you. Well, at least I kept my job for now. As I approached my desk, I felt contemptuous eyes on me. I had done my job better than I had in years. I had to prove to my boss that I wasn't staying here for nothing. Around 11 o'clock, I got a call. It was David. I can't believe you did it. That's what I heard when I picked up the phone. Did what? I asked. You made your husband get back at me. What are you talking about? He works for 3M, right? Yes, but what does that have to do with anything? His company just dropped us as a supplier. That's going to hit my sales and commissions hard. They also dropped us as a printer, so it's not just you that's affected. They cut all our work hours down to 32 a week. I hear you guys are probably going to drop us too. I wish I'd never met you guys. That's your fault. You're the one hitting on married women. In fact, I hear I'm not the only conqueror. You have at least 3 other women you're dating, and 2 of them are married too. Who told you that? My husband. So he's the one who sent the letters to their husbands. He's taking his anger out on me because his woman can't be faithful. All you women are bitches. I wish I'd never met you in the first place. If I don't lose my job, they'll probably give me the shittiest territory. Kurt, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. There's nothing to be thankful for. 26 years of marriage has faded into oblivion. I called all the kids and invited them to come over, making them promise not to give my mom my new address. We'll see if they come. Sue? I got up early, partly because I didn't sleep well, and partly because I need to stick the turkey in the oven and start making other dishes. I doubt I'll see Kurt, but I'm still holding out hope. Maybe he'll feel guilty for not showing up when all the kids are in. Around noon, the kids start arriving. The food is almost ready. Is Daddy going to cook? Asks Julia. I don't think so, dear, but we can hope, I said. I'll call him and invite him again, she said. I knew it was probably a futile gesture. After 26 years of living with this man, I knew how stubborn he could be. I knew from the tone of the conversation that he wanted to tell her he wasn't coming. Well then, let's sit down and have a nice dinner without him, said I. We sat down at the table and were already halfway through when Julia said, I can't believe he's so stubborn. He should be willing to at least come to Thanksgiving dinner. Then we could all talk about it and maybe get forgiveness. Dad is hurting. His wife betrayed him, said Glenn, looking at me, and I realized he was mad at me. Their marriage wasn't very strong for at least 3 years. They fought all the time and then they just stopped talking, said Rachel. Then, looking at me, she said, I'm sorry, Mom, you know it's true. What happened, Mom? Asked Glenn. Why did you two start fighting? Were you having an affair then too? Wow, that hurt. My kids saw the destruction of our marriage and think I slept with someone 3 years ago. No. We were fighting about something else. I was faithful, well, until about a month ago. Why did you do that, Mom? Asked Julia. Well, like you said, your dad and I hadn't been getting along very well lately. We were more like roommates. One day a guy started flirting with me and suggested we go out to lunch. I thought, what's wrong with that? So I went with him. We did this every week for a few months. Well, then one thing led to another, and we slept together, I said, trying not to look them in the eye. And now you want to get him back? Just forgive and forget? Move on with your life like nothing happened? Said Glenn. I know it's not that simple, but I'd like him to forgive me. I've apologized over and over again. He should forgive you, said Janie. What? Glenn looked at her like she'd lost her mind. If he loves her, he should just forgive her, she said. How can you say that? Loyalty is the cornerstone of a good marriage, said Glenn. Love is the cornerstone. You can't build a relationship on fidelity alone, she said. You're right. Love is the cornerstone, and if you love someone, there's no way you'll be unfaithful, replied Glenn. But love conquers all. If he loved her, he would have forgiven her, she repeated. So you think that if you cheated on me, I should just forgive you? If you loved me, you would forgive me. You're going to cheat on me? Asked Glenn accusingly. I don't think so. I don't have any plans, but you can't predict the future, she replied. So you can't make a commitment and say you're never going to cheat on me? I can say I won't, but if everything everyone says were fact, we wouldn't be getting divorced. Everyone would stick to their wedding vows, for better and for worse, in sickness and in health, until death do us part, she said. What about leaving everyone else behind? That too, she replied. You have to be willing to love and forgive those you love. I could see the situation was getting out of hand, so I said, let's not talk about it now, but just give thanks that we are all healthy and can spend time together. I saw the look on Glenn's face. It was like he looked at Janie in a new light. As the saying goes, the rose has bloomed. I'm sure they'll work things out, I said to myself hopefully. Kurt. The kids stopped by after hanging out with Sue. I was glad to see them. There was tension in the air. I hoped it would pass with time. I didn't talk about their mom. We just discussed school and Glenn's new job. My kids were adults now. They had their own lives, and they weren't my kids anymore. How time flies. As they were leaving, Glenn put his arm around me and quietly said, Dad, I need to talk to you. I'll call you tomorrow. I smiled and pretended he hadn't said anything. I wondered what he was talking about. I spent the rest of the day watching soccer, reminiscing about past Thanksgivings. On Friday, I got a phone call. Dad? Hey, son, how are you doing? Dad, I think I need to break up with Janie. What? I said. Why, have you always been enamored with her since you first met her? Dad, the conversation at Mom's yesterday was about the impending divorce. I was sorry to hear that. I hoped that Sue and my problems wouldn't be a problem for our children. Just because your mom and I couldn't last forever doesn't mean you should give up hope for your own relationship. Dad, we were talking and Janie kept saying that you should just forgive her. When I questioned her about what Mom did, It seemed like there was nothing wrong with it. She just felt that if it happened to her, then I should just forgive her too. When I asked her if she was going to cheat on me, she said, "I don't think so, but I can't predict the future." I was shocked by that attitude. I know Glenn loves Janie, and I believe Janie loves him. Was she being realistic, or was she just so hung up on love conquers all that it was almost a license to do anything? And if you love me, you'll forgive me? Son, I think you two need to work this out. Go to premarital counseling or something, but I think you both need to be on the same page on this. You both need to go into marriage with a clear understanding that there are some things that, no matter what, you will never do. I don't even want to talk to her about marriage until I have that assurance. I can understand that. I said, think about premarital counseling. Thanks, Dad, I will. I hung up the phone, thinking about what my son was going through, the questions, the indecision. This was something he had to decide for himself. However, I was concerned about Janie's attitude. Would she cheat on Glenn? Would she expect him to forgive her no matter what? What if he was on the other foot? What if Glenn cheated on her? What if it happened more than once? Would she continue to forgive him? It's a slippery slope if you haven't identified acceptable behaviors and committed to the other person. Sue? The following week, I decided I had better see a lawyer. I explained my situation to him. I told him that I wanted to fight for a divorce. He assured me that at least we could get court-ordered marriage counseling. As I left the office, I felt a sense of relief about my life and what the future held for me. Whether we stay married or not, I will be able to make my point and be heard. Kurt. My attorney called. Sue had hired an attorney and wanted counseling to try to save the marriage. My lawyer said the judge will probably order it, so it's best to get it over with now to cut down on the time for a final divorce decree. Sue, I got Kurt to agree to see a marriage counselor. We're meeting today. Hopefully we can work out our issues and get past them. I know it won't happen in one session, but maybe if we have some time we can make it work. Kurt. I walked into the psychologist's office to get this over with. It may only take 1 or 2 sessions for the counselor to decide that the marriage is irreparable. The counselor is a woman, so I think she'll side with Sue. All I have to do is be patient and let her know that the relationship was doomed even before she cheated. That was just icing on the cake. The counselor asked me to tell her why I wanted a divorce. We are estranged from each other, and I don't feel the damage done can be repaired. And what do you think that damage is? She asked. 1. Trust. I don't think I'll ever be able to trust her again. First, communication. We haven't talked in years. Second, love. I have lost my love for her. Third, commitment and fidelity. She has devoted her time, energy, and emotions to another man and has done it with him more than once. So what do you think led to this? She asked. What was the root cause of all of this? I would say it started with her rejecting my love and intimacy. In short, she cut me off from any kind of intimacy. Sue, would you like to respond? First of all, I still love Kurt. I know the last few years have not been the best. Why? She asked. I lost all interest in sex. I didn't need it and I didn't want it, said Sue. I take it was physiological? You went into menopause? Yes, I just didn't have any desire. Did you speak to your doctor? Did she prescribe HRT for you? I didn't want to take any medication, said Sue. Why? I don't like putting chemicals into my body. So you discussed it with Kurt? She asked. Yes, he just didn't want to understand my point of view. He only wanted one thing. Kurt, did she tell you about her concerns? Yes. And I told her that there were other ways to deal with it other than just saying no. Like what? She asked. I would do my best. I tried, but she blew me off. So I assume the fighting started around this time? Yeah, she wouldn't even try, I stated. And how did that make you feel? She asked. That she didn't love me or want me anymore? Or if she did, she didn't want to do anything about how I was feeling and how it was affecting our relationship. Sue, you stated that you loved Kurt, so why were you unwilling to fulfill his wants and needs? I wasn't interested, and his attempts to coax, pester, and even beg me made me feel resentful of him. Why couldn't he just realize that it was no longer a part of our relationship? Sue, physical intimacy is a normal part of marriage and a way for 2 people to show their love for each other, she said. That's not love. Love is more than that, Sue replied. Yes, love is more than that, but intimacy is part of a relationship, she said. Kurt, tell me what you were doing and what was going through your head during all of this, she said. Well, after a few months of no intimacy, I decided that I would stop trying to initiate and wait for her to take the initiative on her own. I thought maybe on special occasions she would get sentimental and it would happen. I thought maybe at Thanksgiving, seeing how much we live as a family, she would want intimacy, but it didn't happen. Then Christmas. Maybe I'll get a gift from her for Christmas. But that didn't happen. Then New Year's Eve. Let's start fresh. But that didn't happen. Valentine's Day, the most romantic day of the year. We went out to dinner, just the two of us, but again, nothing happened. Then my birthday, nothing. Her birthday, nothing. And finally, our anniversary, we went out again, had dinner and dancing, but nothing happened. From that point on, I just shut down. When we talked, it was unemotional and businesslike. Conversations boiled down to what we needed to get done around the house, or doctor's appointments, or even whether we were going to a friend's house this weekend. We became more like roommates. Sue, what do you have to say about that? She asked. Sue, I didn't know what to say. I was ashamed of what Kurt had told her. He made me look like a cold and uncaring bitch. I couldn't believe he looked at every event as a possible chance to pursue this. Was that really all he was thinking about? I didn't know that. I just thought he was over it. It wasn't that important to me, so why should it be important to him? I began to realize what was going on in his head. He thought that by rejecting him physically would reject him and his love. I felt differently. That doesn't mean I stopped loving you, I said, looking at him. Bullshit, Sue, Kurt said. You haven't expressed love to me in years. You've even given another man what you didn't give me. How does that show you still love me? I don't think you hated me, but I think you just didn't care about me. So now the feeling is mutual. I don't care what you do, and I will find someone who makes me happy and who I can make happy. She will show me how happy she is every day, and we will enjoy physical intimacy with each other. Even when we don't particularly want it, we will do it for each other, unselfishly, so that we each get what we need. That is the kind of woman I will be looking for once the divorce is finalized. I want to move on with my life to find a woman like that. With those words, Kurt rose from his chair and walked out of the office. After that, the counselor and I talked for a while longer, but I wasn't interested. The realization was growing in my head that Kurt didn't need me anymore. He wanted to find someone else he could be happy with because he wasn't happy with me. I had hurt him deeply. In fact, I emasculated him in a way. I didn't have fun with him, but I did have fun with another male, a younger male. In the animal world, the younger male displaced the older male. They didn't fight over me, and he didn't lose. He was just replaced. I came home and sat in the empty house, just me and my thoughts. I didn't feel like cooking dinner, so I just ordered food from Domino's. As I sat there waiting, I relived the last few years all over again. I understood everything now. Kurt had tried to show me his love, but I had turned him down. It wasn't just that, it was about intimacy, physical and emotional. The doorbell rang and I went to the door. The driver opened, an older man, not much older than me, and he seemed familiar. Sue Randolph? He asked. Yes. I thought that was you. Thank you so much. What? I asked. Because you had to screw up. We all screwed up, and I'm working this shitty job to try and make up the difference. I hope you like your pizza, he said with a weird look on his face. Closing the door, I looked at the pizza box in my hands. Had he really done something to my pizza? I didn't know, but I threw it in the trash anyway. In the weeks since my hours had been cut at work, I had become the object of hateful stares and barely audible comments from coworkers. Being there was becoming unpleasant, but it was my fault. I deserved it. Kurt, well, this meeting didn't go as I expected. At least I was able to make my point. Perhaps this will lead to a protracted series of counseling sessions. Oh well, at least I got some satisfaction. I went to the apartment and sat there all alone. I would be alone until the divorce was final, and then I promised to do what I said I would do and find someone who would make me happy and who I could make happy in return. As I sat there feeling sorry for myself, the phone rang. It was probably Sue calling to yell at me for what happened in counseling. I looked at the display. It was Glenn, and I smiled at the unexpected call. Hey Glenn, how's it going? Hi Dad, he said in an impassive voice. What's wrong? I asked. We're over, Dad. Janie and I broke up. No, that can't be. You love her so much. We've been fighting since Thanksgiving. She thinks I'm stupid for expecting her to promise not to do something she has no intention of doing. But she doesn't. I can't go into marriage with these doubts in the back of my mind. Damn Sue, thought I. You've ruined not only our marriage, but also our son's potential marriage. I'm sorry, son. I know you love her. It won't be long, but you'll meet someone you can be devoted to, who will also be devoted to you. Body, soul, and heart. Thank you, Dad. I hope you find someone like that too. Sue, I was sitting watching TV when I got the call. I thought about just sending it to voicemail, but I got curious and looked at the display. It was Julia. Hi, Julia. Thanks for calling. How are you? Good, Mom. How are you? I've had better days, I said solemnly. Well, then I hate to tell you this. I don't want to make your day worse. What's the matter, Julia? Come on, tell me. Glenn broke up with Janie. What? Why? She called me the other day and told me. He's fixated on cheating. He thinks she's going to cheat on him. Oh no, I thought to myself. What have I done? He even wanted her to promise that they would each sign a prenuptial agreement in which everything but the cheater's clothes would be given to the other party. Oh my God, I said quietly. Then I thought, he's his father's son. If Kurt and I had just started out in our time, he would have done exactly the same thing. It was hardly heard of in those days. I guess I could be thankful for that. Well, they had a fight and he broke up with her. She called me in tears, asking why he was so stubborn. I didn't know what to say. Maybe he'll cool down and they can work things out, I said hopefully. But really, I knew my son. He wouldn't change his mind about this. I give up, I said to myself, and the next day I called my lawyer. I told him to ask for a 50-50 split, not 70-30 as he had requested, and to change the reason to irreconcilable differences. If Kurt agreed, I would sign the papers right away. I knew that fighting would only delay the inevitable. I hoped he would consider it a good compromise. Kurt. I got a call from my lawyer. We got a proposal from Sue's attorney. She offered to stop counseling and sign the divorce papers if we changed the split to 50-50 and the reason to irreconcilable differences. I told the attorney, there's no way I'm taking that offer. She won't be able to cover up her cheating by changing the cause. Remind her attorney that we have a photograph and the words of the court representative that she was in a B&B with a man other than her husband on the bed. I will agree to a 50-50 split if she agrees to another. He said he would talk to her lawyer and see what they could agree on. Sue Kurt declined my offer. His lawyer reminded me that they had a witness who saw David naked on the bed. How could I have forgotten that? However, he agreed to a 50-50 split. I told my lawyer to take him up on that offer. I had pretty much decided I wasn't going to stay in this town when it was over. St. Paul was nice when we lived there. Maybe I'll go back there, or maybe I'll leave for warmer climes. Either way, I won't have to deal with people in this town shunning me anymore. I thought back over the past year and how things had changed. The next day, a new salesman from Heartland Paper came to work to try to get our business back. I asked him where David was. In the hospital for at least another day or two, he said. Why? I asked, not trying to sound too concerned. He was beaten up pretty bad. Looked like he'd been hit with a baseball bat. I've been transferred to this area and he'll be transferred to South Central Dakota when he's recovered enough to get back to work. Do they know who beat him up? No, he said two guys jumped him from behind. He didn't get a good look at them. I wondered if Kurt was involved. Maybe it was one of the other husbands, since Kurt had let them know. I should call David to check on him, but that might give the wrong signal that I was done with him. Kurt Shee had accepted the offer. Now all we had to do was wait for our time in front of the judge. Since we both agreed on everything beforehand, it should go quickly. I think about the years we spent together, and I'm still angry about what she did to us. Our whole family would be different now. I wonder if I will ever be able to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Sue. The house was so empty that I was looking forward to selling it and splitting the proceeds. The empty house made me think too much. I would turn on the TV and watch some mindless programs, but my thoughts kept wandering. When I accepted David's invitation to dinner, I said to myself, what's wrong with that? I think I know now. Somewhere in America, a middle-aged married woman is right now accepting a dinner invitation with a man who is not her husband. She asks herself, what's wrong with that? If only she knew. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.